Greetings, all. Today I would like to talk to you about the new Fabio is Claude, the interview with speculative fiction writer Chad Rye, and Mia Ballard's Shy Girl, or as I like to call them all, the AI Fusterclucks. First, I'm going to talk about the novelist Coral Hart, which is a pen name for someone who used to write romance novels traditionally. She says she can actually quote-unquote write 200 books a year and has done so across 21 or so pen names in the year 2025 alone. She has a famous quote making the rounds about winning the race with AI help because she can write more books than most authors do in a year, and who is going to quote-unquote win. Though art is not a race, it is a lifelong pursuit, not a get-rich-quick scheme, but I guess with generative AI it can be for some people. You know, the plagiarism machine. She also teaches other writers how to prompt AI to write less cliche smut, learning how to be better prompters, but not better writers. Doing this takes away from quiet moments of triumph, unexpected plot twist, and surprise for the author, and you know the saying about no surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader. There is lack of connection and passion to the story you write when most of it is written by Claude. Many of these writers who are taking her class are publicly against AI, but privately decide to utilize it. She doesn't want to admit most of her names use it because there will be backlash from readers. Yet she considers herself an AI evangelical. If she thinks it's the future, AI and everyone using it, why not be honest with people? Why not be a pioneer in every single way? Why not just stand on it and say, yes, this is what I do, yes, it's the future, and just read my stuff. It's going to be great, right? I mean, I know some people won't give it a chance, but why are you catering to people who don't like the way you write? If she can sell 50,000 copies a year, even with half the hits gone, she can just write more books and still make up the loss, correct? If people want to buy her books, they should have all the information available to make an informed decision. Then there is Chad Rye, a speculative quote-unquote writer who also uses Claude. He says whatever he writes is his because it has his characters, plot beats, settings, etc. He differentiates himself from other AI users because he actually comes up with names and places and whatnot as though he is better. He said he started using it because he was a pantser, not a plotter, and couldn't find his way out. He said, also, when it comes to writing it all myself, I have found I get so far along and then just hit a block or get derailed somehow. Yeah, Chad, so do I. So does every other writer. It's a normal part of writing. We go take the dog for a walk or we wash dishes or something until we get a breakthrough, or we write a different part of the story and then circle back around, or we just wait it out. Yes, it kind of sucks. And I know people are like, well, when there's a tool, you shouldn't technically have to. But AI is not a tool. It is a plagiarism machine that destroys the environment. It would be different if he were using those dice that, you know, give you a prompt or something and then you just throw them and then you write a scene or whatever. He's not doing that. He's using something that's actively harmful and saying that it's just like a paintbrush. He also says he didn't have the best education, and my heart goes out to him on that one. But a lot of people didn't have the best education. As an adult, we can find books and blogs and videos, classes, all kinds of things we didn't have access to as kids or young adults. And we kind of fill in those gaps. And in part of the interview, he makes it sound like he has been doing those things, researching and learning and whatnot, and I'm glad for him. But it also sounds like he's just like, well, I'm so far behind, I might as well cheat. He totally believes the AI makes him a better writer. He says, if you are a 2, the AI will make you a 5, as though the AI will always be better in his eyes, probably not just for his own writing, but other people's writing instead. But why not just strive for a 4.5 all on your own? You learn so much more that way. Right now, you're learning how to prompt and twist and edit, sure, but it's not the same as learning all the tips and tricks to make your own sentences flow, to make your own work beautiful, and work is never flawless. So if you're looking for technically perfect, I guess you could possibly get that with a machine to an extent, even though the machines themselves have basically a very similar tone. They use certain things, like they love groups of threes when they're describing stuff, and there are all these different ways that an AI can flatten your voice. When you're a writer, you want to share your feelings and thoughts and stories with the world. But yet you're going to just let some computer just take all of the nuance, all of the tonality, all of everything out of your voice. And you're just going to produce something that is technically okay because you're just so desperate to get it out of you. I don't think that does you a service. It doesn't do your readers a service. And eventually, will Chad stop learning? Because AI can make everything easy for you to the point where you become better at twisting things to make it do what you want. As when Coral Hart tries to make it learn new smut for her, learn new sex scenes and stuff, instead of actually, sitting down and doing it herself. So there is nothing new for her to learn. He says, I'm not letting the AI do all of the work for me. It may do a portion, but not all of it. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but in one of my articles, I state that I handwrite the chapter synopsis or type it out. I spend a considerable amount of time planning what is entailed in each chapter. Yeah, people who do that end up writing it themselves, or if they can't, they hire a ghostwriter. And a ghostwriter is still human. It can still put in the emotion, the different types of experimental words. There is something that happens when you pass something from a human to another human. And you can come up with something totally bizarre as a comparison, or you can come up with just a few really beautiful sentences. And sometimes a beautiful sentence can actually make someone's day. It can make them want to write too, all of that. You're taking away chances from your readers, not just yourself for learning new things, or impressing yourself, or improving. You're actually taking it away from your readers when you're just like, well, I don't care. I just wanted to come across as the most boring cornflakes imaginable. So someone in the comments said Chad used his neurodivergence as an excuse to use AI. I did not see it. I will not comment on it, because all I'm going by is the interview he gave. But if so, that's a different video by itself. He says 15% of what happens is AI, and that he labels the work as AI assisted. But if he is using it to go from a synopsis of a chapter into a full-blown chapter, that is not just 15%. That is all the connective tissue, that is half the bones. He says, now I consider the character's actions, dialogue, story direction, etc. Now, as if he didn't before? Aren't you supposed to be a writer, sir? I don't simply take what it produces and call it mine or done. I type out the synopsis and such before continuing with the AI writing part, and after I read through the chapter and ensure it is in accordance to what I wanted. It sounds like he's just being AI's editor here, honestly. Sounds like he gave the AI a synopsis, let the AI write it, and then he just is AI's editor. If you gave somebody an idea for a story, and somebody wrote it and you just did a grammar check and stuff, it's not yours still. It's the person who did all the connectivity. Yeah, you had maybe a hand in it, depending on how much you want to put in, but it's still the AI doing way more than 15%. So he says, by doing that, running things through the AI edit, I make chapters stronger and better for those that are reading the story. Well, I hope you edit. He almost makes it sound like that's something that most writers don't do. People edit their stuff into the ground. That's how we get better. That's how we learn where we messed up, everything like that. Yeah, we don't do it all ourselves. There are editors out there like freelance editors or editors at publishing houses for a reason, because you can't catch everything. But still, if I was an editor, that would suck. It has taken their job. You've taken more than one person's job here, buddy. I don't know if you realize it. Because I'm imagining that you're not just taking help from the AI for that. You're probably using it for graphics or other such things. In my defense, I was never going to pay them anyway, as I don't have the funds to do so. This is another sticking point for me with AI. The talking point of disability, the talking point of money. And I really want to cover those in another video. But suffice to say, no money does not equal okay to wreck the environment, does not equal okay to plagiarize. It does not make you exempt from your shitty behavior or what you condone in pursuit of what you think you're entitled to. As a disabled person, I cannot run track. I cannot ice skate. Some disabled people can, true. I cannot. I cannot do those things. I have to use a wheelchair when I'm in public. I will always have to use a wheelchair. So does that mean because I normally can't do it? Because I don't have, well, in your case, the money or the education. In my case, the literal ability, that I'm allowed to use a jetpack on the course and just jet my way past all the runners? Am I allowed to do that? Is that ethical? Is that fair? And what if I was using someone else's stolen jetpack to actually fly through the air? Does that make it better for me or worse? Because I'm thinking that makes it worse. I'm not only cheating to get there, but I'm also stealing to get there. And I'm also hurting other people to get there. Story. You're not actually writing the story. The magic is what happens on the page, not just in the concept stage. Yeah, you can have concept art on a storyboard, sure. It looks cute, it's fluffy, whatever. But it's when you start animating it, when you put all the life into the pieces, that's when it really matters. That magic, that discovery, that turn of phrase, the little bits and wonder that can be put into a paragraph, you're leaving all that to someone else. And that someone else does not understand a fucking thing about what it's doing. Claude is not the only AI you can use to pen a slop novel, but it is the most popular. And I can kind of see why. It is owned by Anthropic, who, if you don't know, had to settle with authors in a first-of-its-kind AI copyright infringement lawsuit. They took hundreds of thousands of titles from a pirated website and used it to quote-unquote train Claude. So when you're talking about how much better it does than the other AIs, well, that's because it ripped off so many other authors' work that you're basically putting the AI plagiarism into a blender and hoping that it poops out a smoothie of butterflies, rainbows, and guava. While AI is still running rampant in the indie scene, traditional publishers seem to be taking a harder line. Hachette Book Group recently pulled Mia Ballard's Shy Girl from its roster over accusations there was generative AI used in the book. I kind of find it a difficult thing to believe that they had no inkling whatsoever this could have been the case, because when Mia published it herself the year prior, she had taken an image off of Pinterest without getting the authorization or paying the original artist and just slapped the cover on it. Now, just because something has an AI cover, or a cover that was stolen, does not necessarily mean that the text itself uses generative AI, but it could be an indication that you need to look into something deeper. And this is not the only book Mia Ballard published that had accusations that the cover was AI manipulated or that the text might have had some kind of AI embedded inside of it. As far as the book's text, Ballard claims a person from her critique group helped her because she didn't have the money for editing or formatting, and it ended up changing a lot of what she wrote. She only found out, she said, later. Again, this ambiguous later. When did she find out? Was it after HBC pulled it? Was it a week later? Did she actually sign off and then back down when she figured it out? And what kind of critique partner doesn't disclose AI use? Everybody in the writing community and greater art community has strong feelings about whether AI use is a good thing or a bad thing. Wouldn't you at least tell somebody, hey, I can make your book better, but I have to use AI, and see what they think? One of the bad things about AI being so prolific in the writing and art communities is that you will have a lot of people accusing others of having their work be manipulated or entirely created by AI without it being the case. I can't tell you how many times I've seen an artist post something on Blue Sky and someone else say, oh, look at the hands, it has to be AI. Look at the shading, it has to be AI. And it's not AI. So I do understand that with the machinery comes a lot of different accusations. And I understand that not a lot of them are actually fair. But Mia herself did say that the critique partner did use and changed quite a bit of her text in the edits. So when people are like, nobody knows if Mia used it, blah, 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 in this case, we know it happened. We just don't know if Mia was accepting of that fact. Also, Mia is a woman of color in the publishing industry, which is very difficult to endure because they've dealt with a lot of crap. They deal with lesser advances, more rejection, especially if you have people of color in your manuscripts. They deal with being relegated to the special section or as a token because, oh, we already have a book written by like a black woman, we don't need another one. And that is such severe bullshit. And I'm not trying to downplay her experiences and her trials at all, but I don't know if she's saying like she's getting more pushback for potentially using AI because she's a woman of color, or if she's trying to say that even if it did kind of sort of maybe kind of slip in there, that it's okay because she's leveling the playing field. Some agents are taking a stand against AI, if not for the least reason that AI-generated work cannot be copyrighted. How can you sell a work to a publisher when you have no rights to give? And the Authors Guild has a certification program for certain authors that can state their work is not generated with AI. But I honestly believe this should be the other way around. If your cover art is AI generated, if your work is AI generated or heavily inspired, or what have you, you should have to disclose every ounce of AI you use. And I know people aren't going to want to do that because it might affect their sales. And if the AI programs get better, we're going to have a really hard time figuring out what's even AI to begin with. And that's when people just come out and probably use it all the more, regardless of the detriment to other authors, to the environment, etc. And this also goes for ads. I've seen a lot of people who don't use generative AI in their books or on their covers, but they will use it to generate their characters moving around with text over it for their ads. I see it all the time on Facebook. Hate it. Nope, 0 stars. If you use AI at any point, you should have to state loudly and proudly that you use it. If you're going to stand on it and say it's the next big tool, then be a front runner and not a tool yourself, and just say, hey, this is what I use, and let the audience decide. If there are so many of you that love AI, you're going to find an artist community and a readership in other AI people, right? But since you can't copyright AI slot books in America, traditional publishers won't want them because they want rights to a book you can't give. So self-publishing will be the only way to get them to readers until people can no longer tell it's AI or people no longer care. But remember, if you use AI, people can swipe your books and republish them, and you cannot sue. And it's going to happen, like when supposed AI artists complain about plagiarized prompts. If people know they can take your stuff without consequence, they're going to try. And the Supreme Court refused to weigh in on the copyright of AI books. So now people who use AI are going to have to try and push the human element in order to see how much they can get covered down the road. How much writing would it take for humans versus AI to make the story copyrightable? Nobody can tell yet. And maybe there's not a way to tell. And how do you prove that you used AI 90% instead of 70%? Or you used it not at all, but people say you did? How do you prove what you didn't do? How do you prove how much you did or didn't do? It's going to be nearly impossible. And there are a lot of really bad effects that happen with AI. And the data centers and how much water they use, and that water doesn't always go back 100% to the water cycle. There are just so many bad things about AI that I cannot sign off on it. But there is a difference between generative and assisted, which is one of the reasons that people make excuses for disabled people using it. And I really want to cover that and the idea of money in my next video, and poetry as an instantaneous regurgitation of AI machines. Because as a poet, I find it fascinating and also horrifying. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.